Time to talk some ball, y'all. We welcome in our good friend from Husker 24/7 and life in general, Michael J. Schaefer. Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Good. Hey, if a wrap is a sandwich, is a burrito therefore a sandwich?
I do not believe a burrito is a sandwich, but I understand the concept of it. So I don't know. I can't give you the hard and fast why I don't accept a burrito as a sandwich, but I don't for whatever reason.
I don't either.
It's two separate entities to me.
Agreed.
I love both of them, though. So I mean, that's the important thing here.
See, if they had a Southwest chicken wrap, because I was going to say a burrito usually constitutes of something with more of a Southwest flair to it, but you can get like a Southwest chicken wrap. So I'm really confused on why I would never consider a burrito a wrap, but I wouldn't. It's its own thing.
Well, so at what point is a wrap really just a burrito? Like, what's the difference?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's another good question. Jeez.
So, I mean, it's really one for the philosophizers of our time.
Yeah.
I don't know who constitutes or really gets to make the final call on that.
All right, so I have another one for you.
Mind blower.
Would you agree that all Americanized Mexican foods are actually the same thing? They're just presented in a different manner.
All Americanized Mexican foods are the same thing presented in a different manner. So basically, fajitas are the same as tacos, are the same as burritos?
Yes.
They taste different.
I think that's a bridge too far for me.
Okay. That's
they taste different.
You know what? If you don't ask, you never find out.
That's fair. You got to ask the hard questions, and that's why everyone tunes into this show, is for these sorts of debates.
Okay, let's. This may not be a debate. This might be true. Is Turner Corcoran the most valuable player on Nebraska's roster currently?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I understand the premise of the question. I just can't get there because there's a world where Turner Corcoran, is completely healthy but isn't playing at left tackle for Nebraska because he hasn't been effective earlier in the season or whatever it is. So I don't know that he's the most valuable. He certainly now becomes someone in the crosshairs of every conversation, largely because part of the conversation surrounding Nebraska football is that Dylan Raiola has to be kept healthy at all costs. Well, now your left tackle is a guy that's really struggled every time he's played left tackle for the last 4 years. And so it certainly amplifies the conversation about him. But I would stop short of calling him the most valuable. He's certainly on the list of guys who really Nebraska could really use a strong season out of. And it's not inconceivable. I know it sounds hard to believe, but this was once a top 40 player in the country. I mean, this is a guy that Nebraska beat out multiple major programs, Oklahoma, Ohio State, those types of teams for. It's just, yet again, I don't know how this keeps happening. I feel like he's just playing out of position now for the 5th season in a row, and I don't love that for him or Nebraska.
Okay, so you said it's not inconceivable to think that there could be a jump. If you were to look at an area of Turner Corcoran, physically, technique, whatever it might be, that you could see realistically improvement, maybe, and Gary and I were talking about this earlier, maybe even who is playing quarterback, where would you put the most optimism that could happen with Turner Corcoran?
I think he can still be a pretty good run blocker for you. I mean, my concern with Turner Corcoran almost extensively is just his ability to protect the passer. I mean, I just think speed rushers have had success against him. He's a guy that's been put into some bad situations by what different defenders have been able to do, crossing him over as well. The reason I think he can still be a good lineman, but I don't love him at left tackle, is I think he can be a good run blocker. I think he's athletic enough that he can get out in front on screens and things of that nature. But your left tackle, you want to be this anchor that can sort of hold up against the pass rush. And that's where I get a little leery about Turner Corcoran. So I think he can be a good run blocker. It's just, can he be, below average to average as a pass protector? Like, I think that would be a pretty sizable jump from where we've seen him recently, where he's just been bad. I mean, I hate saying it that way, but he's been bad as a pass protector. And so if he can just get to below average or average, that's a pretty good jump and would help you in a lot of ways. I mean, it's not going to help you completely. You're going to have to play calling is going to have to be a factor in that. Shipping is going to have to be a factor in that. But I think there's a world where he can be a pretty good run blocker for you. And if he can just get to be an average pass blocker, you have an acceptable left tackle at that point.
So running the football leads me to this question, because I think Nebraska offensively, they're going to throw the ball. I mean, they threw a fade on the 5-yard line Saturday night, and the stadium went nuts.
Did people boo? Did
No.
they stand up and just
No.
It's not in our state.
People were like, "What are we supposed to do? This is awkward. It actually looks good." But you know this, I know this. Nebraska wants to be able to run the ball when they want to. Okay, not when they have to, but when they want to. So they scrimmage tomorrow morning, and then Rule will talk afterwards. What areas are you hoping that are not still a concern, or Rule gives you a good tone about what he has seen in the first week plus of camp after their first major scrimmage?
I would feel good if we don't hear tomorrow that the defense is far ahead of the offense. I mean, I would appreciate if the offense is at a point where they can at least take the fight to the defense, that it's not just the defensive line wrecking everything up there, those sorts of things. And I don't know exactly what we're going to hear coming off of that scrimmage, but I wouldn't be surprised, but I certainly would appreciate if it's not, the defense is out in front and the offense has some work to do, because Nebraska, they can't really work their way into the season. Yeah, they get the UTEP game and you can kind of try to iron some kinks out that way. But you sort of need this offense to have its pet plays, to have its identity, to know what it kind of wants to do when the season starts, because you have the critical games in games 2 and 4, where frankly, I don't think you can afford to lose either one of those. And you're getting wildly different matchups. And I just don't think Nebraska's offense is going to get this runway to figure it out. So I think it's imperative that this offense has been stacking good days at camp, and we'll find out on Saturday if that's the case with how it does in the scrimmage.
Okay, with that too, Schaefer, if you're to hear that the offense either is on par with the defense, is making strides, what is more important at this stage from a certain position group, that you're hearing the wide receivers are getting open and making plays, or that the running backs are showing up and showing out a little bit more?
I mean, if they're happy with where their run game is against this rush defense that they're going to be going up against, I would feel pretty good about that. I mean, I think one of the great things for Nebraska's running game is who they go against every day in practice is probably as good as what you're going to see out on the field most weeks, if not all the weeks. So because of that, I think if they're able to run the ball effectively in the scrimmage, if they're able to get done what they want in the running game, that is going to make me feel better, because I expect that they're going to be able to pass. I really do. I mean, the big question mark is, can you effectively, run your offense through the passing game and set up the running game? And then can you keep Dylan Raiola right side up? And so those are kind of the things at the passing game. But for the most part, I like the weapons. I expect the receivers to be pretty good. But if it comes out that the running game is in a good spot, if they're able to move the ball how they want, that, whether it's Emmett Johnson or Gabe Irvin appears to be effectively getting downhill against this defense, I think that would be a really good sign. And so that's, if I had to pick between the running game and the passing game, what I hope to hear positively about on Saturday would certainly be the running game. I'm expecting to hear positive about the passing game.
This might be a loaded question because you're very optimistic about this season, but now we're 3 weeks out, and I might ask you for the next 3 weeks the same question. Nebraska's going to be favored in probably 9 of their 12 games. Is Nebraska closer to 7-5 or 9-3 right now?
I think right now they're closer to 9-3. And part of that is just the general optimism I have for this season. It's the expectation that I have. I mean, I'm coming in with it where there's really no excuse that they don't win 8 games. And so for me to say 7-5, then I'm already starting to slide backwards on what my expectation would be, which is fine. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be held accountable at the end of the year for how this thing goes. So, but the idea to me is that this is a team that's built to win football games. So I don't sit here and start saying, Turner Corcoran's now at left tackle. That's worth a game. I'm not sure about this other thing. That's probably worth a game. No, I mean, every team goes through stuff in fall camp. They're going to be a different product than they are right now in the month of October. And I believe in this team. So I think that they're closer to 9-3 than they are 7-5.
Can you rank these of most concern to least concern when it comes to where we are here with Nebraska football in camp? Left tackle, kicking game, both punting and place kicking, and opposite corner position / secondary.
It's the kicking game far and away at this point. I don't feel good about their special teams. Honestly, if you wanted an area where it's like, okay, how could this team give away games this year? Mm-hmm. It's special teams again for me. I don't know how you're going to feel good about your kicking game when your kicker isn't on your 105 or 110, whatever the hell the number is. I don't know that I feel good about Brian Buschini. I didn't last year. It didn't sound like he did very well at the Big Red Preview. He's a multi-year starter, and you still just wonder if you're going to get that 32-yard punt almost in a key situation where you can flip the field. So I don't love their special teams right now. I mean, that's probably the area of the team I am most concerned about. So that would be one. Left tackle would be two. And then honestly, the opposite corner spot, I'm intrigued by what I'm hearing about some of these freshmen. I mean, Larry Tarver and Amari Sanders played really well in the Big Red Preview. Yeah. Those are two guys that, could push for early playing time. Tyre Wright is on the roster, and he's going to continue to work through and put himself in position. Fly Hill is on the comeback. So I think the secondary, ultimately, I like the pieces in there. I think we haven't talked a lot about what a healthy year, we do it for Thomas Fedoni. What about Marquise Buford? I mean, that guy's as healthy as he's been in his career. And this is a guy 2 years ago in 2022 as a freshman we were pretty excited about. And so I think, a full year of health for a Marquise Buford, you got Gifford, you got Deshaun Singleton, you got Tommy Hill. I think whoever else is in that secondary is going to be elevated by who's around them. And that defense, I think, as a whole, is going to be pretty solid. So that one I'm less concerned about. I remember all the conversations we were having early in May and June, and now it's shifted for me. It's squarely the kicking game as a concern.
Let's talk Christian Jones. So there's Nebraska, there's Oklahoma, hello Miami, but he is not going to make a decision for at least a month plus. So is a delay good for Nebraska?
Well, we've known for a while he wasn't going to make a decision until during his year at Omaha Westside. And I wonder if that's more likely to happen in October. I know the quote that's out there with another service, but I don't look for him to speed this up. The Miami thing's fascinating because to my knowledge, he still hasn't taken an official visit there. He talked about maybe visiting at the end of July, and that hasn't happened. So I'm curious if that'll happen early in the year if he gets down to Miami. I think Nebraska has a decent lead in this race, and it's really going to come down to you go beat Colorado, you take care of business in your non-con. I think Christian Jones is going to be ready to look at this program differently than he has the last few years. And I think Nebraska knows it too. I think they don't think there's any more pitch that they can make. It's time for them to show somebody locally that it's not the same old Nebraska, that it's time for a new era. And there's only so much you can say about it. It's time for Nebraska to be about it. And that can't happen until the season starts.
David Sanders next weekend. Has your opinion shifted at all as far as where Nebraska is on David Sanders and possibly getting good news?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're squarely third. I haven't heard or have any reason to think that they've jumped Ohio State or Tennessee. I mean, it goes back and forth depending on who you read for Ohio State and Tennessee. So I look for Nebraska to just kind of be on the outside looking in on this one. These are the sort of recruitments that you're hoping to win over time when you start winning football games, and you give people a reason to believe in your program. You put guys in the NFL. So I think they're just going to miss out on David Sanders, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the end of the world. It's just where they are as a program right now. They got to get better.
Yep. Schaefer, I appreciate it. Great stuff. Look forward to all the things coming out of availability today because practice actually is being observed. And then tomorrow, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
It's Mike Schaefer.